racing in Kona, racing in Hawaii on the Big Island. It's coming up. Everyone's kind of talking about it. There's a lot of questions that I always get about how is it different, how do you train for it differently, things like that. So, um, kind of a quick little note here on a few of the big differences. I think specific race execution is always going to be very athlete specific. Um, their strengths and weaknesses, how they've trained, this and that. Just a quick overview of some things that are a little bit different about racing on the Big Island and racing at a World Championship event. And so I posted this thing the other day, said the island, the race, the competition, and kind of just off the top of my head, just a couple of things that I think stand out as being different. And so the island, it's a much bigger trip usually for a lot of people. If you're racing closer to home, if you're racing in North America, you live in North America, it's a much longer trip, especially if you're coming from the East Coast. 6 hour time change, that's big. It's a long travel day, lots of hours traveling, and so you want to take that into account. If you've traveled over to Europe before, I think that's always tougher. I think going that direction on the time change has always been a lot tougher for me. This time change is at least kind of going in the right direction for you, but big travel day, gotta respect that and maybe get in a little bit earlier. Um, the heat, the humidity. If you live Southern California, Arizona, Colorado, Utah, you know how the sun really affects the temperature. It's a very, very big aspect of it. Um, it's much like that there. You're pretty far south. You're a lot closer to the equator, depending on where you live. Um, and the sun is very, very strong. I would not trust any forecasted temperatures. It's really common to see, oh, it's going to be 85 tomorrow. That's not bad. It's not going to be 85. When you're in a lava field up away from the ocean on the Queen K, it can be stifling. The weather there is very it can change a lot. A little bit of cloud cover, you're down by the water. It's easy. It's not hot. It's not oppressive at all. If you're, like I said, up away from the water in a lava field in full sun, it can be really stifling. So everyone's different depending on where you're from and what you're used to, what you're accustomed to. Some people just handle the heat better than others. I was someone personally that never really did super well in the high heat. So a couple things to think about there. Those are kind of extremes. Don't trust any temperature forecast. Plan for the worst, hope for the best. The clouds can kind of come down from the mountain. Uh, there's a huge elevation change there right off of the water. So you can get these clouds that kind of come down and give you some shade or don't come down. You never really know. I think it's pretty difficult for them to forecast. So sometimes so. Um, Kona in itself is a very small, congested area. Getting around is difficult. It's going to take you a little bit longer, potentially, than some other places. So just plan ahead for that. I think we're always trying to make sure that we don't get stuck outside on our feet in the sun the days before the race. That's always, I think coaches are always like, get off your feet, stay off your feet. It's always a big note, I think, of people's training plans. Being there at the World Championships in a place like that, if you've never been to the islands before, there's more distractions to kind of that are going to pull you away from doing kind of your ideal days before the race type of preparation, and have you on your feet too long in the sun, etc. So, um, you know, you have well, we can get into that later, but the island, it's definitely very different. If you've never been there before, I hope you love it. I've always really loved the Hawaiian Islands. I've been to a few now. And so the race itself, I think a lot of times people really try to prepare in a very overly specific way. It's 140.6 miles. It's an Ironman. Um, The course is challenging. The bike course is a little bit more challenging. The wind is the main factor there. It can be very windy because of the ocean and the directions of the course. You kind of have a crosswind that shifts a lot. You It's possible. I think when I was there in 22, they did have a pretty good tailwind on the way home, which is extremely rare. If you have a headwind on the way out, do not assume you are going to have a tailwind on the way back. You will most likely have some kind of crosswind or headwind on the way back. The way back on the Queen K can be very grueling. The race is really broken up by then, even more so now with the wave starts. So be prepared for after you come down from Javi, and that whole way back is going to be kind of tough. Heavy roads, the wind. It's going to take a while. Um, so, there's not a whole lot there. Yes, it's an ocean swim, no wetsuit. Um, the salt water is not going to help you float any better if the without a wetsuit and a little bit of rolling, which can vary how rough the water is. That's going to make it a lot more challenging. Uh, Usually beautiful views in the water, so take your time there and take all of that in. And when you're there, definitely, I always tell people, really take it in and acknowledge where you are and what you're doing in the race, and really enjoy yourself for sure. Uh, the beginning of the run course is on Alihi Drive, right next to the ocean. You've probably seen a lot of pictures of people with the ocean in the background and the rocks. That is the coolest temperature-wise part of the race because you're down by the ocean. As soon as you go up the big, challenging hill, especially if you're not a great runner, like I was, meaning not a great runner, you go up Polani, which is a pretty big, challenging, long hill, and then you're away from the ocean, and it can be very, very hot up there on the Queen K. Have a plan, know how to cool yourself off, know what works for you, have your nutrition dialed, the whole thing. If you're not used to the heat and humidity, a lot of times what I think happens with people is you're trying to do three things with your body's trying to do three things for you: propel you forward, use your muscles to race, digest food, and stay cool. And I feel like a lot of the times your body kind of says pick two, where we can only do two, and that's why you have people that um, end up just having really, like, they just don't perform well. They just don't have that gear to perform well, or they have major GI issues, things like that. And so, have a plan to combat those things. Obviously, try to, practice some of that in training before you get there. And then lastly, the competition, right? You are at a world championship race. And so most of you qualified to go, and you have a way that the race plays out that's normal for you, that you're expecting. You've probably done more than one race, whether it's, the local short course races or some kind of half distance race or a full. This race is not going to play out that way. Again, they have the wave start so things are a little bit more spread out. But the competition, you need to realize that you are now a dime a dozen. I know a few people, when I was racing there, some other training partners and friends of mine that had never been passed in a triathlon on the bike ever. And you go there and they're getting passed by hundreds of people, literally hundreds of people on the bike. So there are moments like that are going to happen, and it's very easy to get sucked into the negative mindset of, I'm not doing well, I need to keep up with these guys, why are these guys passing me, what's wrong, is my brake rubbing, things like that. Remember, you're at a world championship event. Everyone there is just like you. You're probably not going to be having the race play out in this dominating nature. One of the biggest things about the race that the times I've raced there, you get reminded of over and over in the event. So give the race respect. Don't try to do anything super special. Again, this is getting into more specific individualized race execution. So hopefully, you've gone through that. You've got a good, solid plan, a mental plan as well as a physical numbers plan, and really enjoy your time there. Enjoy your time there. So have a great race. Good luck to everyone that's racing. And even if you're not racing and you're thinking about doing it in the future, watch the race. Hope something like this is kind of helpful, motivates you a little bit more. And we'll see everybody soon.